This moment requires serious people, and Mark Alford is not a serious person. It really is that simple. This is a man who gleefully will send your sons and daughters to die on behalf of Israel, on behalf of the empire, but can't send none of his kids, making money off of blowing up kids. Racism. No, let me back up. What you are doing is killing people, Mark Alford. Moral clarity used to mean something. And I am ready to flip this seat.
I'm Ryan Sorrell. You're watching Liberation Now with the Kansas City Defender, the #1 Black news outlet in the Midwest. We have a big show for you tonight. A lot to talk about, a lot to get into. We have a very special guest coming from the 4th District, one of the youngest congressional candidates in Missouri history. Very excited to get into it. Let's dive in. Appreciate you coming on to the show. Thank you. So just to start off, I mean, who is Hartzell? We know you're running for the 4th Congressional District. What made you decide to run? You know, me and you go way back. I saw you back when you were an organizer with KC Tenants. So, you know, what made you decide to take that step from being a community organizer, you know, out on the streets to running to be one of the youngest candidates in Missouri history?
Yeah, man. I mean, I consider myself, I'm a son and an heir of a beautiful Black radical tradition, radical struggle. You know, my great grandmother, we called her Mama Scylla. Her name was Priscilla, right? Mama Scylla, she made her house a home, even in spite of the deed on her house saying no colored folks allowed, right? And so why I love this city, why I love the people of this city is Mama Scylla at 2629 Tracy, when we would walk around the corner and you could smell the Wonder Bread, you know, and you know, my late uncle, who the first bus ride we ever took, right, was Uncle Kenny. And we took the bus ride to go get a haircut at Mr. Eddie's, right? And it just, that's some of the earliest memories that I can remember, right? And all that feels like home. All that feels like a continuation of this radical tradition, this radical story, right? I recognize that we are all breathing the same air as our ancestors, right? And so what are we going to do with that? And what I have tried to do, what we have all tried to do, this movement that we're building, we believe that we deserve it all, right? We believe that we can be both free and fed. You know, what a concept. And all that I learned from Mama Scylla's house. And what breaks my heart, and the reason why I'm running, is that I can't afford to live where Mama Scylla's house used to be. Folks here in town might know it as Beacon Hill, right? But that was just home for me. And I was able to find some old press clippings of, it was right around the year 2000 when all this was taking place. And just to see the level of disgusting, of antagonism, just to say that this community was falling after, you know, generations of no investment from our city, right? But it's our folks who caused the issue. It's our folks, apparently, that made the whole neighborhood run down. And the erasure.
And when you say our folks, you're saying Black people got blamed for that.
Black folks. Poor Black folks. Working class Black folks. Single Black folks. I guess it was our problem for our own forced displacement, right? And Mama Scylla took a bad deal. The city offered her pennies on the dollar. It's more money than she had seen. Probably more money than a lot of folks in the neighborhood had seen, right? But it wasn't a good deal. We didn't have a lawyer. Mama Scylla was done a disservice. We all are being done such a disservice. And like everyone asked me, why are you running? Why are you running? I am running because our folks are hurting. We deserve so much better than all of this, right? And to think that there are people that are profiting off of our pain, profiting off the point that I can't go back to Mama Scylla's house, right? I think that's unacceptable. You know, when you get your car broken into, right? Even if they don't even take anything, you know, it's a level of being violated that is really hard to explain, right? You're sad, you're devastated, but also you're a little angry. Was it my fault? No. So many questions about what I did when it wasn't the system that actually did it. That's what we need to be fighting for, right? Too many of our folks feel like they're getting their shit jacked with. And I guess I'll finish it with this. MLK Day, this most recent one. I think this campaign has turned my mom into a radical. I love that so much. So I'm walking into mom's house and she's got some MLK speeches on. I'm like, let's go, Ma, let's go. And so we're watching the Riverside speech, the Beyond Vietnam speech, arguably perhaps the speech that got him assassinated, right? And we're sitting on the couch and my mom says, straight face, not a hint of humor, the most serious actually. I'll never forget this moment. Mom said, are you willing to die for this? And it hit me. It's like, man. And the first thing that came to my mind was, Mom, they're killing us right now. What else can we do if not to fight back and to be with our folks as we fight back? And that's why I'm running, because my mom loves me enough to know that our movement is bigger than me. And that is a level of something that I'll never have. That is something I'll never forget. It means everything. And I want to make mom proud. I want to make Mama Scylla proud. I want to make my pops proud. I want to make my grandma proud. Mama Scylla's daughter, who's got her signed program from St. Stephen's Baptist Church, signed by Angela Davis. Like, I want to make my city proud. And I can't do that alone. This is our campaign. It's our movement. That's how we do this. And that's why I know we're going to win this.
And speaking of your campaign, I know that you have a lot of policies that a lot of people probably, to be quite frank, would be afraid to put in their, policy to spread that publicly. You talk about things like reparations. You talk about, affordable housing. You talk about universal health care. You're an open democratic socialist, if I'm correct. And so a lot of these policies, we've seen people like Zoran Mamdani, for instance, out in New York. He's one of the most, prolific and famous at this point democratic socialists, people on the, progressive left, electoral left, who have been gaining a lot of esteem of recently. So I'm interested, can you talk just about, especially, a lot of our viewers are younger people. Yeah. Most of our viewers are Black people. All of our viewers, for the most part, are, pretty progressive. Can you talk about what is your platform, why you decided to have these different policies that you do, which ones you think, just a couple of the policies that you want to highlight that you think would be of interest to people watching this?
Yeah, I mean, when I think of what it means for me to be a socialist, it means that I and our movement, we are rooted in love and liberation, right? It's not just a bunch of policy positions that we know are right. Don't get me wrong, it's right. But it is the lived experiences that make those policies matter, right? It's not just that I want universal health care so that we can make sure that we have, mental health care, physical. I also want to make sure we can get gender affirming care as part of our universal health care. It's not just because, again, of the bullet points. It's the fact that in 2017, I tried to take my own life and I was able to get the help. I was hospitalized, right? I was done a disservice though, because I should never have had to been at that point. My mom was done a disservice because she had to pay for that. I don't know how she did it. My dad was done a disservice. He had to see me like that. If we have these things, our lives are made better. That's the point. When I talk about a guaranteed job, living wage, at least $25 an hour, let's make sure those are union protected. It's because we got bills to pay. It's because the rent is too damn high. So that's why I'm going to make sure that we champion social housing. That is ours, owned by us, off the market, funded in perpetuity, right? Because our folks need a place to live. Because we've got over 800,000 of our brothers, our sisters, our family who are unhoused as we speak. That's unacceptable. 30,000 are veterans who we are putting in harm's way because of the war machine that will send bombs to blow up schools instead of investing in bridges and roads here in our district. We can blow up schoolgirls, but we're going to allow our kids to go in lunch debt.
And just to be clear, I want to dive a little bit deeper on that point before we get back to the policies. Mm-hmm. I know you are also very explicitly, not accepting money from AIPAC.
No.
Of course, we know in this current political climate, a lot of politicians, even black politicians, to be frank, but a lot of politicians are accepting. They're really honestly being corrupted in many senses of the word, being corrupted by this AIPAC money. They're supporting the genocide that's happening in Gaza. Of course, that issue is kind of contentious even a little bit in the black community as well. So I would love for you to talk maybe about why you are so open and against taking money from AIPAC, why you've been so open and supportive of the pro-Palestine movement, and what does that do for your campaign? I assume that can't make it easy for you as someone who's young, for someone who's energetic, for someone who doesn't have any corporate dollars that are being backed by your campaign. It's not easy to be an anti-AIPAC candidate. So I would love for you to just talk about what made you decide to make that decision.
Yeah, I mean, anti the entire Israeli lobby, right? Not all skin folk is kin folk. You know what I'm saying? Too many black faces are being bought up in service to a genocide, in service to ethnic cleansing, in service to tax breaks for the rich. It's funny, before I even went public with our campaign announcement, we had filed some preliminary stuff. We hadn't gone public yet. And I'm on Insta and I get a DM on a Sunday night. And it said, hey, congratulations on your run against such and such and such. I'm with one of the biggest lobbying firms in the country, and I would love to talk to you about your race. And I said, okay, cool. Just here's my campaign manager. Send your stuff this way. Mask totally off. Insert name, a black woman, at AIPAC.com. Just like that. I am disgusted when our lived experiences are being co-opted by folks who don't give a damn about us. Minority Leader Jeffries takes money from Palantir, the same Palantir that installed J.D. Vance, the same Palantir that's making money off of blowing up kids. They're making money off of AI that's taking our jobs away. When you are bought and paid for, you can't say things the way they are. But I can't be bought. I cannot be sold. Doesn't matter who you are. I take the power of the people. It's not profit over people. It's not PAC over people. It is the people. It is black and brown people. It is working class people who are also black and brown. It is all of us coming together to say that we refuse to be a part of this nonsense. I am a socialist because, yes, I am part of a movement that dissects problems, but also we critique the class. I want to dismantle these systems that are oppressing us, that is killing us. And I want to redistribute that money. Absolutely to working class folks. Power to the people, workers of the world. Unite. And how can you say in good faith, workers of the world unite, when bipartisan, they sent us back to work in the middle of a pandemic because boss man had to make a dime? How can I expect you to give a damn about undocumented children who are being locked up in cages as we are engaged in scholasticide and carpetbagging institutions, universities, and children, school children, while they're playing in some instances?
You're specifically talking about the war in Iran.
Yes, but also the genocide in Palestine, not just, by the way, in Gaza. It is all of Palestine. And now what's happening in Lebanon. Does it have a right to exist? I mean, what about what we're doing to Cuba? With the boot of the empire on the throat of working class folks who are just trying to live. Let me put a pin in this. The weaponization of our blackness by too many sellouts, locally and nationally, internationally, I cannot allow. When you are being pressed on an economic issue that is requiring a material argument, your first response shouldn't say that I'm the son of slaves. I understand that. We are a part of a black radical struggle. But my guy, you aren't even acknowledging what that struggle meant.
Yeah. Who are you?
I'm referring to Hakeem Jeffries. Do you know what Reconstruction was? Why are we not continuing that? Why aren't we fulfilling that? We talk about reparations. That's a fulfillment of a promise that we have yet to be, it's yet to be ours. So we got to reclaim it. We got to take that shit back. And moral clarity used to mean something. I know it means something to the people I organize with. I know it means something to the folks who I'm meeting at the doors and at the stores. And it is that moral clarity that informs us that we need universal health care, that we need a guaranteed job, guaranteed housing, a complete dismantling, defunding of the empire, not just abolishing ICE. We need to abolish the Department of Homeland Security, which is in actuality this Department of Domestic Terrorism. That's what this is. And if our supposed opposition party isn't going to say that, then what the hell are we doing? Because we know the Republicans, the reactionaries, folks who are actually sentencing our people to death, they don't care. I can't expect to work with those folks. But I do expect for you, opposition leaders, to oppose, to fight. Where's your spine? And if you never had one to begin with, that's cool, but you got to go.
So I'm really interested because I know we've talked a little bit about international politics. We talked about, of course, the war in Iran. We've talked about the genocide in Palestine. We've talked about how that affects us here locally. I know you talked about how a lot of the money we're spending, as you mentioned, tens of billions of dollars go to Palantir. Tens of billions of dollars are going to literally inflict genocide, to bomb schools, to bomb children, to bomb babies, to set people on fire, all these horrific things that are happening. But I know a lot of people that are watching this, of course, live in Kansas City specifically. They live in the broader Missouri region. I know some of the district, the 4th District covers, the Lee Summit area covers, I believe, Belton, possibly, I think you mentioned Joplin or something like that.
Brother, it's crazy.
And
it's
so,
a
yeah,
war. It is
exactly.
a war on the working class.
And so I'm really interested, can you just talk about, for instance, in Kansas City specifically, I know that we spend over $1,000 on the police and on jails for every $1 that we spend on mental health in this city. I know that our school systems a lot of them have crumbling infrastructure, while we're currently building 3 new jails in Kansas City alone. And so I'm interested in, when you are thinking about the most pressing issues that are facing people in Kansas City, or even young people who are watching this, who might not, have any incentive, who feel like the system just doesn't work at all. What can you say to them, to the young people? Maybe they're even teenagers, maybe they're very young people who can't even vote yet, who are completely disillusioned with the system. What would you say to them? And what are the policies that you're putting forth that you think would speak to their self-interest?
I would say to our folks, are you ready to break this down? Let's break it down. Because these systems are not working for us. They're intended not to work for us. All of this is built on racial capitalism, right? So I would tell our folks, let's break it down. Tell them to expect us, right? I would tell our folks that, number one, I would tell our folks it's not your fault that you don't think this is worth anything. Too many times you've been shown how much this doesn't seem to be worth anything. Mama Scylla had no reason to think that this was worth anything, right? But we have it within our power to begin this world over again. It's ours, right? Langston Hughes said, in Freedom's Plow, America was not America to me, but America it will be. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. America it will be. They put that ish on paper, right? There is actually something very radical to the Declaration of Independence. I'm not trying to be star-spangled awesome over here, but this is ours because they wrote that ish down. So it's ours to reclaim, right? It is a story. It's our story. You got life, you got liberty, and you got the pursuit of happiness, right? We got life. Here we are. We got a bunch of folks. We have this awakening. Got a bunch of woke folks. What are we going to do with that, right? We chose liberty. We chose people over profit. We chose democracy, right? So we got life. We can put that together into this liberty, which now is a mandate, not a suggestion, not an intellectual exercise, a mandate to pursue our happiness. What is that if not guaranteed housing? What is that if not a complete dismantling of a system that has given us the greatest wealth and income inequality in human history? I pursue happiness by making sure we pursue happiness by making sure we tax the rich and we distribute that. We pursue happiness when we make sure that we have an environment that's going to be around. And the through line for all this is we have people who are profiting off of our pain. We can't do climate action because we've got big oil who gives a lot of big money on a bipartisan basis. We can't get rid of student loans, even though we absolutely can. It's called the Higher Education Act. President Biden. Maybe you should have read it. But we can't do that because we got a lot of folks who are making a lot of money on your student loan debt. We can't get universal health care because we got vulture capitalists who are now buying up our hospitals and our nursing homes, again, commodifying our lived experiences, choosing their shareholders versus like patients and your grandparents, closing rural hospitals. You know, you can't, it is the money. It is the money of it all. It is the class of it all.
And just real quick, speaking to, the class, the money, you're going up against somebody who has both the classist view and the money. Yeah. Mark Alford, it appears, is who you're going against in this race. Can you talk a little bit about why you wanted to challenge Mark Alford, who he is as a person to your understanding? Of course, I have my own understanding. I'll interject as needed, but what are some of the differences between you, your platform, Mark Alford, who we know is a unapologetic Trump supporter, who more or less is a far-right fascist? Most people would describe him as such. Many people describe him as a bigot. Yep. I don't think that's unaccounted to say. So I'm interested in how do you differentiate yourself from him, and why do you think that it is so important for people to understand who Mark Alford is versus who you are, and why this is such an existential time and political race, and why the stakes are so high in this race?
Yeah, this moment requires serious people, and Mark Alford is not a serious person. It really is that simple. This is a man who gleefully will send your sons and daughters to die on behalf of Israel, on behalf of the empire, but can't send none of his kids. This is the same man who voted to strip away rural hospitals in our district, the same man that kicked millions and millions and millions of our neighbors off their health care, gleefully, cartoonishly evil, as he wears a too small cowboy hat and calls himself some sort of patriot. No. What you are is perpetuating racism. No, let me back up. What you are doing is killing people, Mark Alford. And this is unacceptable. I did not think in a million years I get a chance to run against Mark Alford. Dream come true. We both, one of us is still a journalist. The other one, I guess, is devoid of truth. One of us cared about the voices of the working class. The other one is performing in front of an audience of one, dear leader, the pedophile and predator protector in the White House. And what I am finding, because I love our folks. I got folks in our district who voted for Trump 3 times. They got the hat, they got the shirt, and they would love to vote for him 3 more times, which I think is what Trump wants to have happen, right? But they know that this ain't right. They also know the rent's too damn high. They know that just the same private equity folks are buying up all of our land here in downtown Kansas City, buying up their land in Warsaw, in Archie, their apartments, their homes, but also their farmland, right? And I don't want to put this, but I'll get into too much trouble. This man does not deserve to represent the incredible people of this district, has no business representing these folks, are good folks. And the fact that he would allow this war on the working class, that he would stand by and cheer it on as our folks are being evicted, losing their lives, preventable deaths, but they don't have insurance. Nearly 70,000 of us die every year for that. He's over here bragging about all these grants he brought to rural hospitals, knowing good and damn well that he just shut down a whole bunch of them. But here's some, let them eat cake, I guess. This man does not deserve the courage of the people in our district. And I am ready to flip this seat. I am ready for when folks say, they don't say that Trump sold him down the river to Israel, but they will say Mark Alford sold him down the river to Israel, right? It's supposed to be Mark Alford that will quell Trump's worst angels. He's an imperfect vessel, to quote the evangelicals, right? But Mark Alford's supposed to be the buffer, and he's just a buffoon. And that's why we have no time for this nonsense. It's a show me state, and these folks have shown their asses, so now we're coming for theirs.
So talk to me about, I know, again, a lot of people, specifically in the Black community, are interested in reparations. And for some reason, that remains to be a contentious topic amongst, primarily people outside of the Black community. I think for us in the Black community, we understand why after 400 years, reparations would be an important political demand for us to put forth to repair the harm that's been done to our country. But as someone who's, again, running for Congress, again, this is something that is kind of a radical idea, to be frank. It shouldn't be, but in the context of the political environment that we are in, reparations can be seen as a radical idea. So talk to me about what is your understanding of reparations? Why did you think it was critical to be a foundational element of your campaign?
Yeah, I'm running on love and liberation, right? And so to not include reparations in my platform, I'm running on a freedom budget, right? For me to not include reparations is a dereliction of duty, right? It is making good on the supposed promise, this American promise, right? That's supposed to be for all of us, but it was actually built off the backs of slaves bought here in bondage. And also, I believe reparations is also giving tribute to those who chose the city. Those who chose not to be a part of this bondage, those who chose the sea. I was asked, actually, especially when the district moved, that we're now in the fourth. We got a lot of rural area, right? And I had somebody ask me, so, hey, that stuff was good. But do you think maybe you should maybe just hide it? You got a lot of farm folks. And I said, no. I said, absolutely not. It's that moral clarity that says absolutely yes, we deserve reparations. I'm talking about cash checks. I'm talking about dismantling and starting new systems that are rooted in love and liberation. And I want all of it. I don't want a commission. I want it because we deserve it. And that is not anti anybody. It is pro people. It is listen, we're all on stolen land, and we've done reparations before with the Japanese internment camp. It's time to make whole our soul. Biden said making whole the soul of the nation. Whose soul? Again, in the organizing space, we say, a better world is possible. And we cannot reach that better world without acknowledging the evils that was done to us, to Black people. And to not acknowledge that and to not make amends for that is not just kicking a can down the road. It is unacceptable. And I'm going to say that till from sun up to sundown, I guess. That's how we're going to say.
Definitely. And there is one last topic that I was, waiting until the end for us to get to. I'm sure you have probably been excited to talk about it. We know that you filed a lawsuit against the mayor of Kansas City, against Mayor Quinton Lucas. Very contentious figure. Some people like him, some people don't. He says things, he does things. I won't get into my personal feelings about him at this current moment in time, but I'm interested about this lawsuit. Can you talk to me about why did you, from my understanding, you previously were working with KCUR, if that's correct. You were also doing work, as you mentioned, with KC Tenants, some after one of the protests that you were involved in or one of these direct actions, you feel or felt as if a call maybe had been made, that power had been leveraged.
Oh, it was made.
So I have to, legally, I have to say allegedly here for my own personal protection. But can you talk to me about what was the lawsuit? Why did you decide to sue the mayor? Because that's an enormous step that a lot of people, again, would be afraid to take. And I know you all knew each other going back a few years as well. So can you just talk to me about the lawsuit and where is it at now?
Yeah, let me lead with this. I said it before, I'll say it again. Especially in this situation here. Not all skin folk is kinfolk. For my entire career, I thought with the public persona, hype man, MC, I thought that was building power. And what it actually was just being an acceptable mouthpiece, right? And I had done so much work with the mayor. Did work after this incident too, because I'm a working class starving artist. I got bills to pay too, right? I hosted this man's inauguration in 2019. I thought we were homies, right? And so, yeah, fast forward, we went to City Hall as part of a direct action with just some incredible tenants, right? We have just, I love my city. I love our folks. And who makes our city so much great is our tenants, right? So we went down there to protest what was supposed to be a affordability ordinance, right? So what was $800 a month was affordable. Now it's going to be moved to over $1,500. It's closer to 17 now with inflation. And that ain't right. So using our First Amendment rights, we went to City Hall and we peacefully, by the way, said that ain't right. And I didn't want to pull focus. I know sometimes that happens with me in spaces. I'm sitting at the end of the aisle, right? And listen, he looked at me dead in the eye. I knew, like, I saw something in his eyes, right? And tenants, we lost that fight. They brushed it through very quickly. And I think one of the worst moments in the mayor's career, right? Maybe the most worst was the following day. When again, yes, I'm working at KCUR, a news station, and the mayor's office calls our news editor, and I would please go read the petition, because here's the thing, they're not even disputing the facts of it. There was a phone call made by the mayor's office to get me fired. And then they circled back like a week later to see what was done on the action. A violation of my First Amendment, of all of ours. This is an assault on all of us, not just me, right? And I was devastated, brother. Like, this is the highest offices in my city. I'm born and raised here. A man who I used to consider a friend is trying to cancel me. Like, how can we supposedly have a leader of the opposition who's using Trump tactics to silence not just me? This City Hall is something else, y'all. And I'm very excited for when this goes to trial for all of these things to come out. And to put a pin on it, they try to bribe me off. They try to offer me spots on one of two boards, either the Economic Development Council Eastside or Reparations Committee. And so in that moment, I could not believe what was happening. But also it made a lot of sense. That's when I realized this wasn't power. This was me being a microphone for capital, for sellouts, for phonies. I talked to the man about it a couple of months afterwards. I said, yo, man, why are you trying to get me fired? And, he does that whole Quinton shuffle. It's very similar to the Cupid shuffle, just not as much rhythm. And he says, I heard something about that. I heard something about it, So you heard something about it, but didn't do nothing to the person to make that phone call? Because those positions can only be offered from the mayor. So something ain't something. All that has to be said, this ain't about me. This is a constitutional case. This is an assault on working class folks. Because you know what? When I am going to venues, when I'm on stage working, the first people I talk to are the security people on the ground. Those are the best people in the entire room. They have your back. And I'm talking to these folks, especially right around COVID time, right? And they're saying, we can't go back to work right now. My kid, they're sending him to school. I got a sick parent. We just lost a relative to COVID. They can't say any of that because they're private contractors. And I had the opportunity to say that. I'm not going to stop saying that because I'm saying it with a huge microphone because I bring a movement. I don't come from a movement, I come with a movement. And that is something that these electeds, maybe even specifically City Hall, don't understand or are not interested in, don't care enough about. Who is our city for? Not a developer. It's for the homie on the east side.
Well, Hartzell, always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for sharing. Again, you all are watching Liberation Now. My name is Ryan Sorrell. We're with the Kansas City Defender, the #1 black news outlet in the Midwest. Appreciate you so much for watching today. Appreciate you again for coming on the show.
Peace.